Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
William White, yes, a part of the North American Dogman Project science team, the official geologist. This is always excellent to see you here in the Fox Den, getting ready for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. You and I have much to deal with. Yes. That was absolutely delicious. And now that I can think clear and feel the shackles falling off, it is time for William and myself to take a walk into the darkness. My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. We, once again, have William White, the official geologist of the North American Dogman Project, who again is allotting time to hang out with us. How have you been, William?
Oh, I've been pretty good. We had a great time over the 4th of July, me and my family. A lot of extended family came out. Just some good old American fun. So it's been a good week.
That is excellent. It's always definitely good to be able to diffuse. And I have not really had a chance to do much of that, which is fine. I have, for the past week, been up, like I said, till 4 or 5 in the morning, just trying to churn out and get everything back up. But, what's that saying? No rest for the wicked.
That's right. The early bird gets the worm, and all sorts of things like that. You'll see the rewards before too long, I'm sure.
No, I appreciate that, and that's what I tell myself. And actually, I've already seen a few that has made me really okay with having to do this. One, I was on not my own account the other day on YouTube, and I happened to see one of my videos being suggested, which was super cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, and also just some of the comments I've been getting from people are really heartwarming, and also just keeps me realizing that I'm on the right path. Like a gentleman the other night said, keep churning them out, brother. My daughter's an artist, and the product you put out is absolutely amazing. And yeah, when you hear things like that, it's makes it worth, like I said, the effort that goes into putting out a good product. So
Absolutely. Good that you're getting some good feedback. I'm happy for you.
no, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I definitely feel like with anything, whether it's this or what you do outside of this or just anything, when you put in hard work and effort, things, usually tend to properly churn out in a good way. Sometimes it takes longer than others, but at the end of the day, hard work pays off. So
For sure. I believe that for sure.
heck yeah. Tonight, I was thinking, so you being down in near Pennsylvania, the Ohio area, I was wondering what your thoughts were on the Butter Street Beast and some of those type encounters. And also when Jody sent me some really, really gnarly pictures of the cornfield that I believe you were part of this as well. It's when you were down in Germantown, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just wanted to see what you thought about, yeah, the Germantown monster, the Butter Street Beast, and just some of those encounters down there.
Yeah, well, the Germantown Monster, I'm a lot more familiar with because it's about 45 minutes from here, and like you said, I've gone out there a couple times with Jody and the rest of the crew, and I've spent a little bit of time just digging into some of the history on that. That one's fascinating because once again, you've got these Germanic immigrants, right? They don't call it Germantown for nothing. It was, well, most of Southwest Ohio was settled by Germans, but definitely Germantown was German and still has a lot of that kind of culture and the descendants there. So just like we were talking about in Pennsylvania, they maybe they brought their myth and their monster with them. I don't know about the Native American history of that area, but the people there had been seeing a dog, wolf, werewolf type monster since the mid 1800s. So it wasn't just something that popped up in the 20th century after movies became a thing and people's imaginations were going wild. So yeah, there have been sightings in that area for I guess now it'd be about 170 years throughout time, including some fairly recent ones. That's a pretty interesting area and phenomenon. And the interesting thing about Germantown is there's a couple really nice metro parks there. And the metro parks are well maintained and these nice. Well, I mean, it's a fairly rural area, but they're very green and kind of untouched wilderness areas for people to hike in and just do outdoor activities. Well, some of the only old growth forest left in Ohio, and really even in this part of the country, surrounding states, is right there in that metro park. I believe it's called the Twin Creek Metro Park in Germantown. And old growth meaning those trees were not, planted after the forest had been chopped down by settlers at some point, or they weren't just kind of a natural, sort of growth phenomenon that happens when a field lies fallow too long. Those parts of that forest, parts of that park are ancient. They kind of untouched, if you will, although people have definitely walked through every inch of it. So who knows if that has something to do with these this history of sightings out there. But yeah, I mean, there's a creek that goes right through the center of town, and there's this really cool old bridge that you don't drive across anymore; you just walk across it. And people, throughout the last 100 years, have spotted a werewolf creature, walking on that creek bed over and over again. That's one of the common areas that it's been seen. It's been seen out in that Metro Park area. The Metro Park is right on the border of Anthony Road, which is where we've done a lot of investigation, and had some witness sightings that we've interviewed from out there. Kind of experienced some creepy stuff ourselves when we were out there. So I lean towards there being something going on in the Germantown area for sure, based on all that history and our own personal experiences.
Jeez, that's some straight up nightmare fuel right there, and that was some excellent history. I appreciate that. Have you heard about the case on Butter Street where the teenagers were attacked by, again, what was to be some sort of werewolf that was munching on their bumper of their car?
I have heard that story. It's been a while. But yeah, that one kind of almost reminds me of there's another werewolf sighting from about 50 years ago in Defiance, Ohio. That's where it is. The Defiance, Ohio Wolfman, and that one was encountered by teenagers frequently during I think it was really just a period of summer. It's not been seen much since, but there was this several months back in I think it was the early 70s when just people all across town, but especially young people out hanging out at night, maybe, doing a little bit of romance in their cars, whatever. They had a lot of encounters with this thing. So yeah, the Butter Street one, whenever I've heard that story, always kind of reminded me of the Defiance Wolfman.
Jeez, yeah, the Defiance one is definitely pretty interesting too. And if people don't know, Stephen King actually based one of the opening scenes, or might be the opening scene, of Silver Bullet loosely off the encounter from Defiance, Ohio, which is super creepy. And have you heard about the one in the 80s where the officials were going up and down the street on the loudspeaker telling everyone that they needed to go back inside as well?
I've heard of things like that. I can't. Was that in Butter Street or Defiance?
That was in Germantown, so
Germantown. Oh, okay.
Jody
So
actually had
I
a
missed
chance.
that one. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that going on in Germantown, but I'd believe it. I mean, there have been periods of time in Germantown where this thing was seen by a lot of people. Just, it's just, I don't know if it's like a seasonal thing or if it's a migratory thing or whatever, but I could imagine if enough dogs and cows went missing and there were enough sightings that the small town like that, the police get involved telling people to stay put for sure.
Super interesting. Jody had a chance to speak to some of the residents at that point in time, and what had apparently occurred is some wolves from the Natural Reservoir Center had escaped, and people
Mm.
were like, wait a second, these are basically domesticated tame wolves. Why are we being told to go back inside? Well, they did, and well, throughout the rest of the night, they had seen large canine-looking beings trying to open their windows, their doors with glowing eyes, and ever since then, you have reports now all across there. You also have one that is more recent where the women were inside of a salon getting their hair
Oh,
done.
yeah.
When that creature came up and looked in at them.
Yeah, that's a really good one because it sounds like everyone got a, middle of the day, bright, perfectly lit, view of this thing that basically walked up to the glass window of the salon and, tapped on it, kind of looked inside and made sure they all knew he was there. That's a wild one for sure.
Yeah, so that is straight up menacing. And
Yeah.
it's definitely interesting because, like I said, ever since then, you're having these reports and sightings. And have you yourself had a chance to ever be with Jody when he came across some of these randomly gated areas that had just been seemingly set up pretty quick with signs just stating this is now private property?
No, I mean Anthony Road, where we did research, that had happened there. Basically, so what it is, it's this little kind of almost like a little farm road, just a narrow gravel path that goes right along the Metro Park, and so it's got, I don't know, a few 100 feet of woods on one side, and then a vast expanse of acres of woods on the other side, and on the less wooded side, then it turns into cornfields. But to really go down Anthony Road, you have to cross this bridge. There's it's called Twin Creek Reserve or Twin Creek Metro Park for a reason. So, you go across this bridge that goes over the creek. And from what I understand, before I ever investigated with Jody, at one point or another, they blocked off the road, basically put up a gate there, but it gets removed because it's not like a permanent thing. And, so I know he has his suspicions that maybe when activity's higher, they block it off. Well, when we were out there with a film crew at night, the park ranger, who was not on duty, but he lives like, basically within eye shot of this Anthony Road area, he saw all the bright lights because, we had a film crew there and they brought all their spotlights and stuff. And he came over and investigated and kind of gave us a hard time. Like he really wanted us to get out of there, but it's a public road. It's it's not private property or anything. It's not even on the park. But yeah, that we thought that was kind of weird that he was over there as soon as he saw people were doing anything. It's like, I don't know if he knew there was danger or what it was, but yeah, he was not too friendly with us. That's for sure.
Wow, that is super, super interesting right there. I've seen some of the pictures, like I said, Jody sent me, of just the signs stating stay out. And do you think it has anything to do with potential Dogman stuff, or do you just think it's coincidental?
I don't think it's a coincidence. I mean, I think that it's connected for sure. Like, why else would they block off a public road like that? Why would this ranger be so hyper vigilant about it? The other crazy thing was, and I saw it myself when we went out there, but something had placed a rotting deer skull on top of a post. Now, when you or I place a skull, a head on a post, think about it. Imagine how you're going to place it there. Now, I'm guessing that 9 out of 10 of us, maybe 99 out of 100 of us, when we think about, putting a skull on a post or a spear or a pike or whatever, um, the the eyes are going to be facing outward. Like you're going to, kind of go through the neck, maybe up through the head, and that's how you're going to set it. Um, that's, I think, how a human would look at the world. Well, whatever or whoever put this deer head on this post didn't set it there, in a horizontal position like the deer was looking out across the road. It set it in this vertical position, which was really just honestly kind of like creep me out on a weird level. Just how not human that behavior was. Basically they push this post up through the back of the jaw, forcing the mouth somewhat open, and the head, was kind of looking up at the sky. Now, I mean, that could have been a local, could have been a farmer, could have been the ranger. But like I said, I think most of us wouldn't have set the deer head on it in that direction. It just seemed really, really off to everyone who saw that picture,
Hmm. Yeah, that is very interesting, like you stated, and it could be all the above. I mean, unfortunately, people are very deranged too.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
it's true. It might just be a really deranged individual who sees the world a whole lot different than I do. I don't know, but
yeah, you'd like to think, people are all in the same type of mind frame, but one of the channels I do watch sometimes while I'm just working on things is You Explore with Us, and they are currently involved in some sort of officer type stuff, and they just cover really bizarre individuals and just some strange crimes. And you just see some people that are just straight up, you're like, wow. So that's the only reason I said sometimes
sure.
you never really know like the type of mind frame people are in. And
No, that's for sure.
yeah, have you heard about also the case in Ohio where it was earlier in the morning and people are pretty optimistic that they saw a giant black werewolf thing that had been carried off and loaded into an unmarked ambulance and carried away?
Up in Akron, another Metro Park area. Now, Akron is 3 hours away from Germantown, so just for people who aren't familiar with Ohio geography, probably wouldn't be the same one, right? But yeah, there's a Metro Park there called Silver Creek, and Silver Creek, throughout the years, at least in the 21st century, has had several werewolf sightings. And yeah, so that's one that I've heard from several people, and it kind of tracks. It tracks with some other things that I've experienced and know about as well. What happened was people were driving along, like you said, kind of early in the morning, heading off to work, whatever, and this road, was more or less kind of blocked. Traffic was being directed around, apparently, or something to that effect. But the people who were first on the scene reported seeing what they thought was a bear, a very large bear, or at least what they were told was a bear, but it was way too big. Black bear in these parts, they've come back to Ohio, including Germantown actually, but they're not 800-pound black bear. They're pretty small creatures. They're hiding. They're real shy. They're hiding in the back of the woods. They're not eating out of trash cans or anything like that makes them get so huge in other parts of the country. Some people said it definitely was not a bear, that it looked much larger and more canine, more wolf-like. I believe a former park ranger was interviewed from up there as well, and they said the same thing, and that it was all hush-hush. As far as what I kind of know about it myself, in that same area in 2018, I believe, there was a dog breeder who bred like prize German Shepherds. So we're talking big, strong, fierce, defensive dogs. They can handle themselves. They're German Shepherds. And so in that area is a national park, as well as that Silver Creek Park. National Park is Cuyahoga Valley National Park, and it's beautiful and it's pretty, wildernessy and kind of cut off from a lot of the rest of the areas. There are highways that go across it, but there aren't a whole lot of roads that go through it. So it's not a bad place, even though it's so near some large cities. It's not a bad place for some large wildlife to hang out, perhaps. But anyway, so this breeder, he one day he goes out after, I believe he had experienced some weird sightings in the days leading up to this, but he goes out after hearing a commotion in the kennels and finds, I believe, all of his dogs, but if not all, the vast majority of them had been absolutely slaughtered. And we have pictures. I don't know if they're still on the website or not, but they were on the website for a time. We have pictures of the wounds on one of these dogs, and it doesn't look like anything I've ever seen a wild animal do. It looks gutted. I mean, it like with a sharp knife, a nice clean cut through the abdomen. It was really strange. Like, I wouldn't expect an animal's claws or teeth to be able to cut in this nice, clean, straight line. But yeah, it was over 9 dogs. It might have been a dozen dogs that were just butchered. And we never really got a chance to actually go and investigate the property because the guy was so troubled by this that he just, packed up, sold his house, and moved to a different part of the country. But me personally, I used to live not far from there as well, in the southern part of Cuyahoga County, in a town called North Royalton. I was renting a home that was actually fairly rural. I had several hundred acres of woods in the backyard that basically you could, if you wanted to, go almost all the way to the metro park without ever leaving the tree. Not the metro park, the national park, without ever leaving the trees. If you just followed this river that went through there, and I mean, you would have traveled about 20 miles on foot. But what I'm saying is there was, for something that doesn't want to be seen, there was a path. And I was out one winter with my dog, had my 22, walking her through the woods, and I look up, and I'm not too deep into the woods yet, but about 100 feet, maybe a little beyond 100 feet down the wood line, and this is winter. There's snow on the ground. There's no leaves, no foliage. I see a very large, I mean, this thing was at least wolf size, much bigger than any domestic dogs in the area, and long too, black canine on all fours. Didn't see it on 2 feet or anything, but I saw it. It caught my attention, and I was watching it. My dog didn't give a crap. She didn't see it. She was sniffing at something. I mean, she was in her own little world, but it realized I was there too, and it turned its head and looked at me, and it saw me, and its eyes were this bright, I wouldn't say glowing, but it was daytime. They were a striking yellow, for daytime. And I swear I had this feeling that it grinned at me, that it wasn't just like an accident or the dog grin where it can't control its mouth or whatever, that it was this, mocking grin or something. And I looked back down at my dog to see if she was seeing what I was seeing, and then I looked back up and it was gone. So was it a Dogman? I don't know. But it wasn't like any dog in that neighborhood, and I'd lived there for a bit, so I knew the dogs. It wasn't like any wild animal that Ohio's supposed to have. We're not supposed to have big black wolves. And, it was so much so, and I was not into Dogman at the time. So much so, I was in graduate school at the time. I went to school the next day and talked to my buddy who's a hunter and an outdoorsman, and, he and I had a lot of shared interests. I said, hey, man, do you think Ohio could have wolves? Like that's how impressed I was by the size and shagginess of this thing, that I'm like, and he's like, no, man, there's no way Ohio has wolves. It's like, yeah, I figured that. But so I don't know. I will tell you that part of the state is interesting. It's always had an interesting feeling to me. And there's a lot of legends and stories up there about things. One time I was out hunting and we came across this old coon hunter. He had beagles, and we got to chatting, and me and this outdoors friend of mine as well. And we were walking back to our vehicles together, all of us, and he looks at me and he says, "Are you armed?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." I had my little 22. I was like, "Yeah, I've got a gun." And he's like, "No, a real gun." And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm carrying my pistol too." He said, and he was old. He was, late 60s at least. He said, "You boys never know what you're going to find in these woods." I wish I could interview him. I wish I had his contact information. I'd love to know what makes him say that, But yeah, there's something spiritual, physical, I don't know, going on up in northeastern Ohio for sure. So.
Jeez, that's awesome. Straight up interesting, but nightmare fuel stuff, and
It's like, what
also,
has this guy seen?
yeah, right. And you are correct. Yeah, the images are still up on the website,
Oh, good.
and they're just under evidence, so people, do have to go look for them, and that's something that unfortunately YouTube doesn't like to have shown. So
For
I
sure, for
am
sure.
not going to be able to show anything along the lines of that in this video. But yeah, as William stated, just go to the link in the description of my page, and you'll be able to see everything up on the North American Dogman Project.com for sure. And have you ever heard about the judge case in Ohio that was running along the corn and
I
where
listened to his interview, yeah, and that one stood out to me because he's a freaking judge. He doesn't want to like sully his reputation with some harebrained, story, right? And he's coming out saying that he had this encounter. Yeah, that was wild for sure.
yeah, that definitely is another wild one. And what about the Keith Williams, the London, Ohio case
Oh
about
yeah. Yeah, that one, that was a fantastic account. I'm familiar with the people, the culture, the economics, the history, everything I've, growing up in the 80s there. Um, yeah, that was intense. And that's it's cases like that. It's cases like the salon, where the dog man makes sure that the women inside see him, you know, stuff like that makes me sometimes think that these things, they don't really care about eating flesh, that what they want to eat is fear. They it's like they want to generate fear, and somehow they can use that. Somehow that emotion is, tangible to them, and they can um, capitalize on it. I don't know, but yeah, it seems like in a lot of these cases, the creature's always, out to just absolutely terrify you and make you as just mindless and panicked as absolutely possible. So I don't know what's behind that. I've some theories, but I haven't settled on, what I prefer to think. So
Yeah, no, that again is super intriguing, but also very not cool when you look at what is occurring in the areas. And like I said, with the people that are missing and the sightings, and especially in Ohio. And I'm trying to filter through my brain to see if I have any more that I know you definitely would have been around with Jody and out investigating, because pretty much all the ones so far I've been able to speak to Jody first person about them, and I'm trying to, like I said, see if there's really any other ones that hit home, because I did get a chance to speak to Keith Williams, and I actually
mhm.
got an episode up of him the other night,
Oh,
which is
nice.
yeah, which is pretty cool. And
Hmm.
yeah, check it out. And I assume, like you said, I mean, I have not heard his encounter before until he had told it to me.
Really, that's pretty
Personally,
cool then.
yeah, I had heard a little bit of it being mentioned and stuff, but I'd never fully heard what had
Hmm.
unfolded. And I didn't even know there was an episode of, I believe, Paranormal Witness that had done it as well. So, yeah, no, it was really interesting to hear that, and the aspects of how basically Nazis from Germany during World War II would come to small areas like that and just basically try to hide out, and how the guy worked here or there at the tire shop, and then he lived in an old,
Yeah.
basically makeshift cabin behind the tile mill. And yeah, it's just really weird. And plus how Keith's wife was having issues with something looking in the window and etc., and then how they found the footprints on the roof and they could hear it like running across. And yeah, some pretty interesting stuff. And then when he got up to get a donut in the morning, he saw it looking in the garage window. Yeah, so yeah, no, it was in like the 80s, and Jody had heard about it because I'd asked Jody first before I did reach out to speak to him, just because, like I said, I mean, I don't know, he's an OG in this, so
Yeah, he is.
yeah, he's gonna know people that are gonna be trying to yank chains and such, and I just always throw names at him first, and
Hmm.
he'll be like, yeah, he's worth or she's worth talking to, nope, etc. So yeah, and I reached out to him, and it's definitely some really interesting stuff, and the one that you just referred to as well. It really gets to the point of having to step back, and let's say, how many did we just talk about?
Oh
five,
man,
6, 7,
yeah,
right? Okay,
something like
so
that. I mean, quite a few. You just rattle them off. Yeah, there
yeah,
are.
all right. Let's say, sure, maybe a couple of those are hoaxing or not real, but then that
Okay.
still leaves what, 3 or 4 that you're still sitting here like kind of scratching your head
Hmm.
about. So that means, in my eyes, something is at least occurring. Whether it was in all those encounters or not, I don't know. But in one more too, what about this old sawmill down there where Jody's got pictures of what looks to
Yeah,
be something on the roof living around that area?
yeah, yeah. That picture. I remember when that one was first sent to us, and Jody sent it to me in an email. That picture is pretty. I mean, it's a little blurry, but you can feel the shape of whatever is up there, and it is strange and creepy as hell. So yeah,
So there's
yeah,
another
man.
one. Yeah.
It's strange because for those who aren't familiar and just know the memes about it, Ohio is this very interesting state where a large chunk of it is actually fairly pristine and untouched, especially in the southeast. But there are pockets all over the state. Northeast Ohio actually has a lot of it. Then there's a lot of farmland. There's a ton of suburbs, and we've got some pretty dang big cities. So it is like, you know, it's got everything. And so most people who aren't familiar with it think, or are only familiar with the cities, how could there be Bigfoot? How could there be Dogman? How could there be whatever? In a state like Ohio, it's so industrial, it's so, settled. And that's just not the case. There's a lot of empty land here and a lot of, woods and rivers and valleys and hollers. Um, so yeah, that when I hear stories like that, to me, I go, yeah, I mean, why couldn't a dog man just be hiding out, 100 acres of woods off some farmer's field, and if he needs flesh, stalk deer in the, at night when people are not around. And yeah, like I said, it may sound crazy to other people, but it's totally believable to me that we could have something in different parts of the state for sure.
100%. And again, well spoken, and I appreciate all that. And that's some great insight. And before we do let you go, I'll just give you an example. There's a fox that lives in the neighborhood here, and I've seen it. It's been here a while. I've honestly seen it maybe twice. And
Hmm.
it's, yeah, again, same thing. Like anything that wants to hide or be stealthy is very easily able
Oh
to
yeah.
do that, and especially remote wooded areas. I mean, we live in a community that was dug out of wood, so I mean, we still have a ton of forest around us. So I mean, we have a ton of squirrels, chipmunks, we have foxes, we have woodpeckers, we have crows, we have pretty much a ton of things, woodchucks, like.
So I bet you even have some black bear you probably don't even know about, but they're
You
so
know,
shy you're not going to see them usually.
that's so funny you just said that, man, because the other day I was out just in the yard, and one of the women that walks her dog around the neighborhood, and I was just saying hello, playing with her dog and stuff, and there actually has been a black bear spotted in the back around the power lines here recently, and yeah, so that's so ironic you had said that. Yeah.
Yep. And that's the thing. Like my parents, they live about. I live in the suburbs of Cincinnati, but my parents, they live in a more rural community about half an hour away from where I am, woods and farm fields. And the other day, my mom said, "I swear I saw a bear cub, on the edge of the woods," and that's actually not that crazy. But to most people who aren't familiar with it, you know, that's pretty insane to think that there are bears here in this part of Ohio. But there absolutely are. They're just really shy. 30 years ago when I was a little kid, there were hardly any, maybe one or two that would just pass through on their way to like Michigan or Kentucky. But today they've actually come back. But most people don't know it because even though they can be quite large, a couple 100 pounds or bigger, they don't want to be seen. They're not going to be seen.
Yeah, no, 100% well spoken. And well, thanks again for taking time out of your busy schedule to pop into the Fox Den tonight and explode everyone's mind with some great information. I do know that everyone likes all the hosts I have on, but I do have some people that really like what you have to say. I actually have a spelunker that has been extremely helpful with sending really cool images and footage that she gets in, and she has said William's extremely smart. Too bad he's afraid of caves. And
Absolutely.
yes. So she had been listening to that episode, so I just found that to be amusing. But yeah, make sure you
But she
definitely.
doesn't understand. I'm 6'4", 250 pounds. You know, squeezing through some tiny little cave tunnels is not my idea of fun.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy. If you did enjoy this episode, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm, and I will see you on the next one.